alien girl's shirt torn during robbery of her mother's amulet, but one human fights back. Voices from 100 species mixed with machine sounds, soft music, and the hum of engines behind the walls. Lights reflected off metal floors and signs floated in the air, changing language as people passed by. To most visitors, it was just another busy place. To the station authorities, it was perfect order. To the young alien girl, it was overwhelming. She walked close to her mother, her small hand gripping the edge of her mother's long sleeve. Her people were not tall, not loud, and not common on stations like this. Their skin shimmered faintly in soft colors when they were calm, but right now, both mother and daughter looked dull and tired. They had traveled far. The mother carried a small case, wrapped carefully in cloth. Inside it was a single item, the amulet. It was old, older than the station itself. It had been passed down through many generations, always from mother to child. It held stories, memories, and identity. It was not just decoration. But the station did not care about meaning. It cared about rules. The mother had come to trade, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Their homeworld had suffered environmental collapse, and many families were scattered across systems. The amulet was the last thing of value she owned. Selling it meant survival. The girl knew this, even if no one had explained it fully. She watched her mother's face as they walked, noticing the careful calm, the forced strength. That alone made her nervous. They stopped at a stall where a broker waited. The broker was smooth and well-dressed, with eyes that never stopped measuring. He smiled politely, the kind of smile that looked friendly but felt empty. He spoke fast, in perfect station-standard language, using words that sounded fair and legal. The mother listened carefully. She was cautious. She asked questions. The broker answered all of them. Around them, people moved on. No one slowed down. No one paid attention. This was just another deal in a long line of deals. The broker asked to see the amulet. The mother hesitated, then carefully opened the case. The amulet caught the light, glowing softly with patterns that shifted like breathing. For a brief moment, the girl felt proud. This was her people's history. This was hers one day. The broker's eyes lit up. He nodded, made a few notes on a screen, and spoke again, faster this time. He talked about valuation codes, ownership transfer laws, and station authority approvals. The words flowed together. The mother tried to keep up. That was when it happened. The broker reached out, closing the case smoothly. At the same time, he slid a document across the table, already signed, already processed. The screen flashed green, transfer complete. The mother froze. She protested, her voice calm but shaking. She said she had not agreed yet. She said she needed time. She said this was not right. The broker remained polite. He pointed to the screen. He quoted the law. According to station rules, consent had been given when the item was displayed and the initial verbal acknowledgement was recorded. It was legal. The girl stepped forward, confused and scared. In the movement of the crowd, someone bumped into her. Another person pushed past. Her loose outer shirt caught on the stall's sharp edge and tore slightly along the side. It was not a dramatic tear, not loud, not intentional. But it exposed her arm and part of her shoulder, and the sudden cold air made her flinch. She felt embarrassed, vulnerable. Her skin shifted color without her control, showing distress in a way her species could not hide. She pulled her arms in, trying to cover herself. No one noticed, or worse, people noticed and chose not to care. Security drones hovered above, passive and silent. No alarms were triggered, no rules were broken. The broker gathered the case and stepped away, already turning to his next client. The mother reached out but stopped herself. She knew better. Any physical action would make things worse. She pulled her daughter close instead. They stood there for several seconds, unmoving, as the crowd flowed around them like water around stones. The girl felt small. She did not cry. She had learned not to, but she looked up at her mother and saw something that hurt more than fear, defeat. A few meters away, a human watched. He had been standing near a transport schedule display, waiting for his boarding time. Humans were common on stations, often overlooked because of that. He wore simple clothes, carried a travel bag, and looked like someone passing through. But he had seen everything. He noticed the way the broker rushed the process. He noticed the mother's hesitation. He noticed the girl's sudden color shift and the way she tried to hide herself after her clothing tore. Most importantly, he noticed how fast everyone else moved on. The human frowned. He did not shout. He did not rush forward. He simply paid attention. That was the first difference. He stepped closer slowly, not wanting to startle anyone. He positioned himself near the stall, pretending to browse nearby items. He listened to the broker's words again as the man spoke to another customer. Everything sounded correct. That bothered the human. He turned his attention to the mother and daughter. The mother was trying to adjust the girl's torn clothing, her hands shaking slightly. The girl kept her eyes down, her posture closed. The human cleared his throat gently. "Excuse me," he said in clear, calm station standard. "Are you all right?" The mother looked up, surprised. She hesitated before answering. "We are fine," she said, though it was clear they were not. The human nodded. "I saw the exchange. If you don't mind, I think something may have been wrong with how it was handled." The mother's eyes widened just a little. Hope flickered, then dimmed again. "It was legal," she said softly. "The station says so." The human looked back at the broker, who was now laughing lightly with another client. "Legal doesn't always mean correct," the human replied. The girl looked up for the first time. She studied the human's face. There was no anger there, no pity, just focus. The human knelt slightly so he was not towering over her. He spoke gently. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Just cold," she answered quietly. The human reached into his bag and pulled out a light jacket. He offered it, holding it out without moving closer. "For now," he said, "you can give it back later." The mother hesitated only a second before helping her daughter put it on. The jacket was too big, but it covered her properly. The girl's skin color slowly began to calm. Something shifted in the space around them. A few nearby people slowed their steps. Some glanced over. The moment was small but noticeable. The human stood. "I'm not a station official," he said to the mother, "but I am familiar with interspecies trade law. If you allow me, I'd like to ask a few questions." The mother looked at her daughter, then back at the human. She nodded. That was when the broker noticed them again. He frowned slightly, irritation flashing across his face. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The human met his gaze evenly. "I believe there might be," he said. "And I think it deserves a closer look." Around them, the noise of the station continued, but something had changed. For the first time since the amulet was taken, someone had stopped walking. And that, in a place like this, meant everything. The broker's smile did not disappear. It simply changed. Before, it had been friendly and smooth. Now it was thinner, careful, like a door only half open. He looked at the human, then at the mother and child, then back again. "There is no issue," the broker said calmly. "The transaction was completed under station law." The human nodded once. "That may be true, I only wish to understand how." The broker folded his hands. "Understanding is not required for acceptance." "That depends," the human replied, "on who wrote the rules." A few people nearby slowed their movement. Not enough to form a crowd, but enough to listen while pretending not to. The station was used to arguments about trade, but something about this one felt different. The mother held her daughter close. The girl stayed quiet, wrapped in the human's jacket, her eyes moving between faces. The broker sighed lightly, as if tired. "Sir, I have another client. If you have a complaint, submit it to arbitration." "I will," the human said. "But first I have questions, simple ones." The broker hesitated. He hated questions. Questions slowed things down. "Very well," he said. "Be brief." The human pointed to the stall display. "Your valuation system, does it include cultural weight?" The broker shook his head. "Cultural value is not measurable." The human smiled faintly. Interesting, because Station Trade Law Appendix 12 says otherwise. The broker's eyes flickered, just for a moment. The mother looked up, confused. She had never heard of Appendix 12. The human continued, his voice calm and steady. Appendix 12 allows for non-material valuation when an item serves as a cultural anchor for a recognized species group. That clause is outdated, the broker said quickly. Rarely enforced, but not removed, the human replied, which means it still applies. The broker straightened. Are you a legal representative? No, the human said, just someone who reads carefully. The girl shifted slightly. She did not understand the words, but she felt something happening, something important. The space around them felt tighter, quieter. The broker glanced around, noticing the attention. He lowered his voice. You are interfering with lawful business, he said. This can be reported. The human nodded again. You should report it. Transparency helps everyone. That was not the answer the broker expected. He turned his attention to the mother. Ma'am, you accepted the preliminary terms verbally. That is enough. The mother shook her head. I asked for time. You were given time, the broker said smoothly. You chose to proceed. The human raised one finger. Actually, she asked a clarifying question. Under station guidelines, that pauses consent. The broker stared at him. The human did not look away. Silence stretched between them. A station drone drifted closer, its sensors adjusting. Not because of danger, but because of irregularity. It recorded voices, posture, tone. The broker exhaled slowly. This is unnecessary, he said. The item has already been logged and transferred. Reversal would cause administrative burden. Convenience is not justice, the human replied. The drone's indicator light blinked. The broker turned sharply to it. There is no dispute. The human spoke before the drone could respond. There is a concern of coerced consent under cultural pressure. The drone paused. Clarify, it said in a neutral tone. The mother flinched slightly. She had learned to fear official systems. The human gestured gently toward the girl. Her species displays emotional state through skin response. That response was visible during the exchange. The drone adjusted its sensors, reviewing recordings. The broker frowned. That is irrelevant. Not under interspecies fairness protocol, the human said. Visible distress during negotiation requires confirmation of consent. The drone processed this. The girl looked down at her hands. She had not known her skin changing mattered. She had thought it was weakness. The drone spoke again. Consent confirmation was not recorded. The broker's jaw tightened. Requesting secondary review, the human said. The broker raised his voice slightly. This is ridiculous. We cannot stop commerce every time someone feels uncomfortable. The human's voice remained calm. Then perhaps commerce should learn to be more careful. People nearby stopped pretending not to listen. A trader from another stall leaned closer. A pair of travelers paused with their bags half lifted. The moment grew heavier. The mother whispered to the human, "It is all right, we can leave." The human turned to her. "You can, but you shouldn't have to." The girl looked up at him again. This time her eyes were brighter. The drone floated higher. Secondary review approved. Temporary hold placed on item. The broker stepped back sharply. "You cannot." "Hold is within protocol," the drone interrupted. "Please comply." The broker's smile vanished completely. He tapped his wrist screen, sending rapid messages. "This will delay everything." "Yes," the human agreed. "Delay gives space to think." Security did not arrive. They were not needed. No one was shouting. No one was touching anyone. Yet the broker felt cornered. He looked at the human with something close to anger. "Why do you care?" he asked quietly. "It is not your culture, not your property." The human considered the question. "Because I saw something taken," he said. "And because everyone else decided it was easier not to notice." The broker scoffed. "Idealism." "Responsibility," the human corrected. The mother listened, stunned. In all her travels, no one had ever spoken like this for her. The girl squeezed her mother's hand. Minutes passed as the drone reviewed data. The station noise slowly returned, but the space around the stall stayed tense. Finally, the drone spoke. Preliminary finding, procedural irregularity detected. The broker stiffened. Item remains on hold pending arbitration, the drone continued. All parties required to provide statements. The broker's voice was tight. This is an inconvenience. The human smiled slightly. For you, the broker gathered his things with sharp movements. This is not over. It never is, the human said. The broker left, disappearing into the crowd. The mother exhaled shakily as if she had been holding her breath for hours. Thank you, she said softly. The human shook his head. Not yet. This is just the beginning. The girl looked up at the drone. Will we lose it? She asked quietly. The drone paused, outcome undetermined. The human crouched again, meeting her eyes. No matter what happens, he said, you were not wrong to feel hurt. Remember that. Her skin shimmered faintly, warmer now. Around them, people resumed walking, but slower than before. Some looked thoughtful, some uncomfortable. A few looked impressed. The station had not changed, but the idea that nothing could be questioned there had cracked. And cracks, once made, tend to spread. The waiting area outside arbitration was quiet in a way the station rarely was. Soft lights glowed along smooth walls. Information panels floated silently, displaying neutral symbols meant to calm visitors. Chairs were arranged carefully, spaced to avoid conflict between species. Everything about the room was designed to feel fair. The mother sat stiffly in one of the chairs, her hands folded in her lap. The girl sat beside her, feet not quite touching the floor, wrapped tightly in the human's jacket. Across from them, the human leaned back slightly, calm but alert. Time passed slowly. The station did not rush justice. The girl watched shapes move across the ceiling and tried not to think about the amulet. Every time she did, her chest felt tight. She wondered if it was already gone, locked away somewhere she would never see again. The human noticed her restlessness. This part always takes time, he said gently. Systems like to check themselves. Do they ever admit they are wrong? The mother asked quietly. The human considered this. Not easily, but they do respond to pressure, especially when rules are used correctly. The mother nodded, though she did not fully understand. She had lived her whole life learning how to stay out of systems, not challenge them. A soft tone sounded. Case review commencing, an automated voice announced. A doorway opened smoothly. Inside the arbitration chamber, 3 floating displays activated. Each showed shifting symbols representing neutrality. No judge appeared. The station preferred distance over faces. The broker entered from the opposite side. He looked calm, but his posture was rigid. His eyes flicked briefly to the human, then away. He did not acknowledge the mother or the girl. The group took their assigned positions. State your claim, the system said. The broker spoke first. This transaction was lawful, he said smoothly. All protocols were followed. Any discomfort experienced was unfortunate but irrelevant. The mother flinched slightly at the word irrelevant. The system turned to the human. Response. The human stepped forward. The transaction followed surface protocol, he said. But it failed deeper interspecies safeguards. The broker scoffed quietly. The human continued. Consent is not only words, it is understanding, and understanding requires space. The system paused, processing. Clarify, it requested. The human gestured toward the girl. Her species displays emotional state visibly. That was recorded. She was distressed during negotiation. That triggers consent verification under station fairness law. The broker interrupted. Distress does not equal coercion. No, the human agreed. But ignoring distress does. The system displayed data, images, timestamps, sensor readings. The girl's color shift appeared clearly on the screen. The mother gasped softly. She had not known the station could see that. The broker's jaw tightened. The broker did not initiate consent confirmation, the system noted. Because it is optional, the broker said quickly. Optional, the human repeated, unless distress markers are present. Silence followed. The system processed again. Broker, it said, why was confirmation not requested? The broker hesitated, just for a second too long. It would have delayed the transaction, he said. The human nodded. Exactly. The system did not respond immediately. The girl shifted in her chair. She felt exposed, seeing her feelings displayed like data. The human noticed and spoke again. There is another factor, he said, cultural pressure. The broker frowned. Explain. The amulet is not just property, the human said. It is a cultural anchor. Removing it under rushed conditions places emotional pressure on the family, pressure that affects consent. That is emotional argument, the broker snapped. It is documented law, the human replied calmly. The system pulled additional records. The mother leaned forward slightly, hope and fear mixed together. Cultural anchor status confirmed, the system said. Registered species artifact. The broker's confident posture began to crack. This is absurd, he said. If we allow this, trade will become impossible. The human looked at him. Only unfair trade. The broker laughed sharply. You humans always think feelings matter more than function. The human met his gaze. We think ignoring feelings breaks function in the long run. The system paused again. Outcome pending, it said. Additional review required. The lights dimmed slightly. Please wait. The chamber fell silent. Minutes stretched. The broker tapped his fingers, annoyed. The mother whispered softly to her daughter, words from their home language meant to calm. The human stood still, patient. At last the system spoke. Finding, consent was incomplete, transaction invalid. The mother's breath caught. The girl's skin shimmered brightly. The broker stiffened. You cannot. Transaction reversal authorized, the system continued. Item to be returned. The broker's face flushed with anger. This sets a dangerous example. Yes, the human said quietly, a good one. The system turned to the human. Advisory note, your involvement exceeds standard bystander role. I know, the human replied. Reason. The human glanced at the girl, then back to the system. Someone had to care. Silence followed. The system processed this statement longer than expected. Case closed, it finally said. The chamber lights brightened. The broker stormed out without another word. The mother sat frozen, tears filling her eyes. It's coming back, she asked. Yes, the human said. It should be delivered shortly. The girl looked up at him. You didn't have to help us. The human smiled gently. No, but I chose to. They returned to the waiting area. Other travelers watched them now, not with indifference but curiosity. Some nodded quietly. Others looked uncomfortable. A small service drone approached, carrying a sealed case. Artifact returned, it said. The mother opened the case with shaking hands. The amulet lay inside, glowing softly, unchanged. She pressed it to her chest, overcome. Thank you, she whispered. The human stepped back. I'm glad it worked. But even as relief spread, tension remained. The human felt it. The system had allowed this, but it would remember. Later that day, messages began spreading quietly through station channels. Traders discussed new risks. Brokers complained. Administrators flagged unusual human involvement. The station did not like disruption. The girl and her mother prepared to leave. Before parting, the mother spoke. You changed more than our fate today, she said. The human shrugged lightly. Maybe, or maybe I just reminded the station of its own rules. The girl hesitated, then handed the jacket back. Thank you, she said shyly. The human smiled. Keep it, it fits better than you think. She smiled back. As they walked away, the human felt eyes on him. Not hostile, not friendly, watching. The system had pushed back and lost, but it would not forget. And neither would the people who saw that one human had stood still when everyone else kept walking. The trade station returned to its normal rhythm. Shuttles arrived and departed. Deals were made. Voices filled the halls again. On the surface, nothing looked different. No alarms rang. No announcements were made, but something had changed. People talked, not loudly, not officially, but in quiet conversations between stalls, in private messages, and in careful questions asked a little more slowly than before. A human had challenged a legal trade, and won. The mother and her daughter left the station the next morning. They stood at the boarding gate with their few belongings. The amulet rested safely against the mother's chest, wrapped in its cloth. The girl touched it once just to be sure it was real. "It's really ours," she said softly. "Yes," her mother replied. "It always was." They did not see the human again before leaving, but they did not forget him. As their transport pulled away, the girl looked back at the station through the viewport. It no longer felt as large or as cold as before. She did not know why, but she felt stronger. Elsewhere on the station, the human prepared to depart as well. He sat in a quiet waiting area, reviewing messages on his device. Several alerts blinked at the edge of his screen: administrative notices, trade advisories, and one formal warning. "Unusual legal involvement noted," it read. "Further action may require registration." The human smiled faintly. He powered the device down. A nearby traveler, a tall alien with metal markings along their arms, leaned closer. "You were the one," the alien said quietly. The human glanced up. "The one what?" "The one who stopped the broker." The human shrugged. "I asked questions." The alien studied him. "Most don't." "Most can," the human replied. "They just decide it's not worth the trouble." The alien nodded slowly. "After what you did, 3 traders rewrote their contracts today." The human raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes." "They don't want delays." "Good," the human said. "Delays make people think." The alien gave a low sound that might have been laughter. "You humans are strange." The human smiled. "We get that a lot." The broker, meanwhile, was having a very bad day. His access to several markets had been temporarily restricted. Not permanently. Nothing dramatic, just enough to be inconvenient. His clients were cautious now. Some asked questions. Others went elsewhere. He sat alone in his office, staring at the wall display. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. He had followed the rules, mostly. He had done what everyone else did. And yet he was the one facing trouble, not because of force, but because someone had cared enough to slow things down. He closed his eyes, angry, not at the human, but at the fact that the system had listened. The station administrators held a private review later that cycle. No names were mentioned publicly. No apologies were issued, but internal protocols were updated. Consent verification prompts were moved higher in the interface. Cultural marker alerts were made more visible. Small changes, annoying changes, necessary changes. A senior administrator summarized it simply. "If humans are going to read the rules this closely, we should make sure the rules are worth reading." News of the incident spread beyond the station. On other stations, traders discussed it as a warning. On some worlds, advocacy groups shared it as proof that the system could work. Among diplomats, it became a case study. The phrase "human intervention" appeared in several reports, not as a threat, as a variable. Humans were not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the oldest, but they had a habit the galaxy was starting to notice. They paid attention. The human's ship departed later that day. As the station shrank behind him, he leaned back in his seat. He felt tired but calm. He did not feel like a hero. He had not saved the galaxy. He had not even planned to do anything. He had just stopped walking. That was all it had taken. On another world, weeks later, the girl sat with her mother in a small, shared living space. Sunlight from an unfamiliar sky filtered through the window. Life was still hard. They still had to work. They still had little, but they had each other. The girl practiced writing symbols from her home language while her mother prepared food. The amulet hung nearby, catching the light. "Mother," the girl asked, "why did the human help us?" Her mother thought for a moment. "I think," she said slowly, "because he believed we mattered." The girl nodded. "Even when no one else did." "Especially then," her mother replied. The girl smiled and returned to her writing. Elsewhere on a different station, a trader hesitated before finalizing a deal. A client looked confused. The trader cleared his throat and said, "Take your time. Read it again." The client looked surprised. On another world, a station drone flagged distress markers and paused a transaction automatically. No one complained. On yet another station, a human traveler noticed something wrong and stayed. The galaxy did not change overnight, but it shifted. And shifts, once started, are hard to stop. The human never learned how far the story traveled. He never heard about the policy changes or the discussions in distant halls. He never met the girl again. But sometimes, while moving through crowded places, he noticed something new. People looked up more, they slowed down, they asked questions. And every now and then, when someone felt small or ignored, someone else noticed. That was humanity's real strength. Not power, not control, but the refusal to accept that silence meant fairness. The station would continue to hum. Trade would continue to flow. Systems would remain complex and imperfect. But now, hidden deep in the code and memory of that place, was a simple lesson. If one human could stop and care, anyone could. And the galaxy, slowly and quietly, began to believe that too.